The topics discussed and the information provided on this program is for general information. The hosts of this show are not medical professionals and are expressing their personal views and stories related to their individual lives. Their views are not intended to be used or taken as medical information. If you or a family member have suffered a traumatic brain injury, you should seek help from a practicing licensed physician.
Hi, I'm Matt Duffin. My co-host, Malin Whitaker, is ill today. My guest had a cancellation I had coming from Indianapolis. So I got a lot of empty chairs, and I got one that's full. It's got me in it. This is the Brain Mechanics. And I couldn't even work in the backyard on your brain. But there's things we're going to talk about that I can help you with and in future endeavors. We're going to build up higher and get. One of my issues is I had a falling recently and I broke my ribs and hurt my head again and ended up in Reed Hospital again. And I'm back. Hi, I'm Matt Duffin. I'd like to talk about being a survivor, a little bit from our side of it, and try to speak towards the caregiver as well. Because we do have a voice, and our brain is damaged, but it's not gone. We're not half-witted. Depends on the injury. There's scar tissue up there. And after the brain heals itself from the many or the certain or the stroke bump that it took, or the many that it took in a traumatic brain injury, after they start calming down and healing, they leave scar tissue. And the neurons are trying to rebuild themselves around the cells, and things are happening, and there's parts that we don't remember, okay? Some of the parts that I do remember, before we get too started, I was at the Illinois Brain Injury Conference recently in Chicago. Met some wonderful people. And I got some information from them I'd like to share. Oh yeah, my list. I want to thank Mercedes Duffin for helping me so much. My life coach, Deborah Berry. She lives in Las Vegas. She is an amazing woman. And that's part of being a TBI survivalist. You have to find you a coach. It helps. They don't have to live with you, near you, talk to you very often. That helps. But you need communications with a life coach. And there's so many things on the road to recovery you can do after you see your speech therapist, after you're done with your occupational therapist, after you're done with your physical therapist. When you're sitting there just sitting in a corner wondering what to do. Whether they can go to church with you or you can't go to work with them. There's things you can do. You know, I know here in Wayne County, down in family services, there's a vocational rehab. I'll try to find that website. Michelle Bound, the director of the Voc Rehab Services down there, she can get you back to work. They can find things you can do. They also outlet you to Crossroads of Easter Seals. Crossroads starts giving you equipment. For instance, I tried to write sports again after my brain injury, after I tried to recover a little bit. I just had to get back to Butler University with Matt Howard. They give me an ink pen that wrote and took notes pretty much on its own. All I had to do was kind of talk to it or let it listen. They got me a computer I could take to the ball games and use. I'd never had a laptop before. On the other note, if you have trouble with your sight, you can get phones with the big buttons on them that you can dial. Hearing devices, I think they have over 400 and some different types of aids and electrical devices for the handicapped people. I'm one. They can help you with your everyday life. And of course, if you are a brain injured survivor, you just got to stick with the programs, baby. It's not going away and you're not going away, so keep working at it. Your therapist taught you a lot. Take notes, write down, take videos of what you do, of what you've done with them. The visions I have. The Brain Injury Association of Illinois. We had some falter in Indiana's Brain Injury Association a few years ago, and we're on our way back. Jeff Lilly is the executive director on the board. We have, I think, 3 brain injured people on the executive board now, compared to where we used to have 1. We're trying to rebuild it. You can call me, Matt Duffin, 765-259-2917. I will help you with your brain injuries if you live on the east side of Indiana, from Muncie down to Cincinnati. I help people the best I can, or at least get them information where they need to go. I can't answer your questions until you ask me what it is you want to know. That's called an advocacy and a public policy. In all brain injury associations, you know, they have direct impact on the public and the way it affects their lives with brain injuries. That's their goal. And their prevention programs. They have things in Illinois, and I hope we come back to it, we used to in Indiana, of recreational camping. You go camping with your peers for a week. And yes, you can take one caregiver with you. There's therapists of all types that camp with you, all kinds of protection. But you get to camp, you get to eat, you get to cook out, you get to have fun. The endeavors that we did, it builds so much self-esteem. You know, you're in the wilderness. You know, they have a 6-day camp in Illinois, and they got a 5-day camp for children. For those on that side of the state and you want to join the Brain Injury Association of Illinois, you sure can. They have their own support groups. We're building ours back up. Indiana had the most at one time. Now we've signaled in, we just had a leadership meeting a couple of weeks ago. And it was a great one. I think we zeroed in on 23 or 24 support groups that we want to rebuild in Indiana. I'd like to make the one in Richmond to Cincinnati, so big that we'd have 9 or 10 of them. Bring it to Milton. You know, they have, and what we need and what I am is a peer support program. I know so many people with brain injury, and in Indiana I know quite a few too. And remember, there's only so many of us in the world that made it through it to be like this, to be able to talk. I probably know 50 in this state alone. Would you say, Mercedes? 35? Then we go have our group outings and fun with. I can hook you up. If I can't help you myself, I know people that can. They're very intelligent. And as a brain mechanic, I will send you to a professional as well, even though this is about survivors for survivors today. Because a lot of good professional organizations believe in the survivor and believe in the survivor's ways, not just their ways. Before we get into that, one more. Let's get our glasses out for this one, because I want you to take a brain health quiz. No matter what age you are, no matter how healthy you think your brain is. This is really geared up towards 50 age, my age group or above. It's a simple 23 questions, and I'll go through it. Did you or anybody in your family have Alzheimer's disease or dementia? Yes or no? Have you tested positive for the Alzheimer's disease gene? Did anyone in your family have Parkinson's disease? Have you tested positive for the Parkinson's disease gene? Have you had a concussion? You know, that's a head injury with a loss of consciousness or a disorientation, confusion, or memory loss. That was a long sentence, I got it out. But have you had a concussion? Did you take any repetitive blows to the head? You know, like from sports, military service, or just physical abuse? I've met a lot of people right here in Indiana in support groups in their mid-30s, young 30s, and they just found out what was wrong with them all these years. They grew up just a little bit slower than the other kids or so. It's because they were beaten as a kid, nobody let them know. Do you sleep less than 6 hours? Do you get less than 6 hours of sleep a night on purpose or reality? Do you act out in your dreams? I suppose. Does somebody tell you? Do you talk? Do you shout? Do you scream? Do you kick? Do you punch? I would think kissing would be more vital, but anyway. You know, do you act out in your dreams? And this would be, I guess, for our female listeners. I don't know if it'd be on the transgender side or not, but it's okay. You know, did you reach menopause? And that's a complete cessation of menstrual periods for 1 year before you were 45 years old, and it wasn't due to surgery. Did you have your ovaries, one or both of them, surgically removed before you was 45? Do you have heart problems? Do you have high blood pressure? Have you had a stroke? Do you have diabetes? High cholesterol? Come on, you've ate at McDonald's. Are you obese? Do other people think you're obese? If they do, then you're obese. Do you smoke? Anything? Do you have more than 2 drinks of liquor a day? I guess it's okay to have 2. Then why won't the doctor let me have any? Damn it. Oh. Have you been diagnosed by a doctor or treated for depression? Did you go to school less than 12 years? Did you quit? Were you physically inactive? Have you always been physically inactive? Do you eat red meat? Fast foods? Sugary foods? White bread daily? Are you worried about your brain health? Final question. Did you make it through that with me talking? If you've answered yes to one or more of those questions, you have an increased risk for Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease and related disorders. Related disorders. Related disorders. Traumatic brain injuries are related disorders. Excuse me while I have my sip out of my nice IUACE cup. I got to teach from the book, but I helped write the book. It's called BICS, B-I-C-S, Brain Injury Coping Skills. It was written by Dr. Samantha Backhouse and Dr. Summer Ibarra. Of the Neuro Center in Indianapolis that belongs to RHI. That's where the Dr. Lisa Thompson School is, and we'll go into that if we have time. This time, we're going to go about strategies about moving forward. 7 keys of mindfulness. Some of this stuff they should teach when you're a junior or a sophomore in high school. You know, you got to be present, you got to observe and describe, and you're going to be intentional. We're going to make a transition from talking about what regarding was a brain injury to how specifically. We're going to introduce the concept of mindfulness. You know, what's the purpose of emotions? In order to have good management skills, you have to understand the nature of your emotions. You know, your emotions lie at the core of everything. Once you understand the purpose of your emotions, you look how to manage them as one of your keys to your recovery. We can take a peek into your emotions. As a side note, the research program at the Rehab Hospital of Indiana has a research program that's great for brain injured people to take. That'd be rhi.com, I suppose. You know, it's an effective aspect of your consciousness. It's what you know. That's an emotion. But do you know it? You know, how would you define emotions? You know, you got unpleasant emotions. Or you've defined an emotion to be in some sort of feeling, a state that we have about something or someone or some experience. These feelings of emotions can include experience like fear, anger, disgust, sadness, or happiness of joy. Kind of like the election we just experienced. I think everybody went through every aspect. Let's talk for a minute about happiness. You know, what is happiness? A feeling of well-being. It's a joy. It's a contentment. Like cats are content. They curl up in a little ball and purr. They're content. I don't know what dogs do because I don't have any. Are they ever content? You know, in the Western culture, it's being psychologically healthy. That's happiness. So from that view, this culture assumes that the emotional suffering is unhealthy and abnormal, with views of unhappiness as a sickness or an illness. Because we're learning from that view is false. Other cultures suggest that without other emotions like sadness, loneliness, anger, or pain, we would have no idea what happiness truly is. That makes very good sense. In essence, we cannot know what one feels like without experience from others. That perhaps is actually the other emotions that drive us as individuals, human beings, or as a culture to become motivated, empathetic, and caring for one another. You know, you have to understand that negative emotions are not always bad, normally, but not always. And you don't need to always aim to get rid of a negative emotion as quickly as possible. There's 7 keys to being mindful. You know, you just don't occur on what occurred in the past. You don't. You don't dwell on it. If you have a brain injury or a stroke, it's a traumatic effect. So why dwell on it? Why you want that ugliness to remember? It's kind of like if you're looking for yourself. Where are you? Am I finding myself? I used to say I was almost caught myself. I'm a block ahead of myself, but I couldn't catch me. I didn't want to catch me. That life ended in trauma and tragedy and a lot of pain on other people's faces. Long coma for me. Why would I want to relive all that? You know, you don't project too much into the future, but you realize that you have no limit to your future. You know, you got to be of one mind. One mind means you have to focus on one task at a time. It's opposite of multitasking. It's a lot easier on your strategy and stimuli, that was the word I was trying to think of, in your head. You know, you got to observe and describe an experience without judgment. I know that's really, really, really hard to do, especially for us Hoosiers. We just can't judge. You got to observe it and describe it, your experience, to yourself. Take your time. What else you got to do? We got time. You know, then you can be intentional and goal-directed. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. Let's do a slope deep breathing exercise to close out the show. Just breathe normally and time how many breaths you take in 1 minute. It should be between 8 and 12 that you take. That's more therapeutic. Just try it. Just time them. Just time them normally. Then I want you to sit in a calm position. I want you to try to breathe normally and naturally, but pay attention to your stomach. Visualize a belly inside your balloon, inside your belly. There's a balloon in there. You can feel that balloon expand and let out. Take slow breaths through your nose and your mouth. Do that for several minutes. You know, you just finished doing what's somewhat of a difficult exercise. This type of breathing and exercise does not come natural to everyone. It's a skill. It requires practice to do it, and you'll get benefit from it. Again, count your breaths. Sit patient in a calm position. Try to just sit there. And then start paying attention to your stomach. Nothing else. Pretend like it's a balloon. The balloon's going in and expanding out. You know, don't push it in and out. Just imagine that your belly's just breathing comfortably, just as you are. Take slow breaths. Breathe in and out of your nose. Breathe in and out of your mouth. Do it for several minutes. I want to thank you for being a survivor. Do you know how strong you are? I don't care if you think you're a little slow, a little backwards. You are. Big deal. Admit it. Get over it. You can't move forward until you admit that you have a brain issue. God, I've been moving forward since I was 3 years old, I think. No, sorry. I'll say good night.
The topics discussed and the information provided on this program is for general information. The hosts of this show are not medical professionals and are expressing their personal views and stories related to their individual lives. Their views are not intended to be used or taken as medical information. If you or a family member have suffered a traumatic brain injury, you should seek help from a practicing licensed physician.